Hey friends, welcome back to Sweet Potato Soul. In this video, I'm gonna show you how to make 3 delicious tofu marinades. And I've got a couple more on the blog post for this video, so make sure you check all of them out. They're gonna be linked in the description box down below. For the 3 marinades I'm gonna teach you today, we've got a garlic gochujang, a Jamaican jerk, and a lemon caper marinade. These are all super duper easy to make, absolutely delicious, and will take your tofu to the next level. Oh, you do have my cookbook in stock? Great, thanks, bye. Have you ordered my cookbook, Vegan Vibes, yet? You're gonna love this book. It's got 100 delicious vegan recipes that are inspired by the South, by my travels all around the world, and just like good food. You know what I'm saying? Order today. But before we make our marinades, we've got to prepare our tofu with one simple, important step. We've got to either press the tofu or boil it to get the excess water out. Now, most of us are familiar with pressing tofu. It is so easy to do, but did you know you can also boil it to get any extra water out? This is a great method as well. However, for me personally, I usually just press it and leave it on the counter for 20 to 30 minutes while I get everything else ready. To press your tofu, you don't need much. You need a block of tofu. Because I'm doing 3 different tofu marinades, I've got 3 different tofu packages. I'm using extra firm tofu here, which is my favorite for just everyday tofu recipes. I also like using firm tofu, but I tend to use that more for like vegan cheeses. And I also love using super firm tofu, but that in particular I like to use when I'm grating it to make something like my vegan sofritas. But just for everyday stir-fried, air-fried, baked, or grilled tofu, extra firm is my favorite. So we're gonna take our tofu out of the package, and then you're gonna cut it into thirds lengthwise. You can cut it in half, you can cut it even thinner if you'd like, or you can leave it whole. That is all up to you. But cutting it in thirds definitely allows me to have more slices of tofu that now can be pressed more efficiently. Now that the tofu is all sliced, I'm gonna take a plate and cover it with a clean kitchen towel. You can use a paper towel for this if you prefer. And then we're gonna simply put the tofu directly onto the plate on top of the towel. And then you're gonna cover it with the other side of the kitchen towel or paper towel. And then we need to put something really heavy on top of the tofu to help press the liquid out. Imagine squeezing the liquid out of a sponge. That is basically what we're trying to do here with our tofu. A heavy, flat-bottomed pot works really nicely. Anything that you could put directly on top of the tofu. And then we're gonna let this sit for 20 to 30 minutes. It's just gonna draw that liquid out and we'll be ready to put the marinade on the tofu. In the meantime, we'll start with our first marinade. For the garlic gochujang sauce, we're gonna combine all of our ingredients into a simple, small mixing bowl. First step is we're gonna add our gochujang sauce. Gochujang is a Korean red pepper paste. It's spicy, it's salty, it's umami, and it even has a little bit of sweetness to it. I think it is one of my favorite condiments of all time. Now into the same bowl, we're gonna add some soy sauce, followed by agave, sesame oil, sesame seeds, and we need some lime juice. I'm gonna set that bowl aside right now and just squeeze some lime. We're gonna need 4 teaspoons of this lime juice. So that's a tablespoon plus a teaspoon. I think it's about exactly how much I got from that half of a lime. And lastly, we've gotta add some garlic. You can use minced garlic or crushed garlic, but I like to use a microplane to grate my garlic straight into our marinade. That way it's gonna give it even more garlicky taste, and the pieces are gonna be smaller, so they're gonna incorporate better into the marinade. I'm just gonna grate the entire clove. Now I'm just gonna take a whisk and blend it until it is smooth, and then we can add it to our tofu. And now we can set our marinade aside while we work on the other ones and while we wait for our tofu to finish pressing. Now we're gonna move on to our Jamaican jerk marinade. I've been making this marinade or sauce for many years. It's actually adapted from Bryant Terry, and this is just one of the best jerk marinade recipes I've ever come across. And it's very easy to make because we're gonna put all of our ingredients into a blender, blend until smooth, and then we can add it to our tofu. We don't have to do too much prep for this recipe, but we do need to just cut the bottom off of an onion and obviously take off the skin as well. But we're gonna put a quarter of an onion. We're also gonna use the whites of this green onion. So I'm just gonna cut the base off. And we can save the green parts for garnish when we actually cook and serve that tofu. So put that aside for later. We're also gonna add 2 cloves of garlic. You should be adding a habanero pepper, but I had a lot of extra jalapeno, so I'm just gonna add that. You can also use Thai chili pepper if you want it extra spicy. But you know what, I want mine as mild as possible because I want baby J to eat it too. And I have ginger. I need about a teaspoon's worth of it, so just gonna cut a little piece off the bottom and that'll be added straight to our blender. So we're gonna add garlic, our pepper, our ginger, and now we're gonna get into the other ingredients, including soy sauce, apple cider vinegar. We need about a half a tablespoon of lime juice. I'm gonna eyeball it by squeezing it into this cup first. We've got some agave nectar. You could use agave or maple syrup here for your sweetener. We also have an assortment of spices. We've got dried thyme, black pepper, allspice, and I'm also gonna add some nutmeg. Now these are the spices that are essential for any jerk seasoning or marinade. And for nutmeg, I always grate it fresh. It's so much better this way and actually less expensive as well. And we're gonna add better than bouillon vegetable bouillon paste. This is in place of vegetable broth, that you could use that instead if that's what you've got. And then lastly, half a cup of water. Now we're gonna blend this up and we'll have our delicious jerk marinade. Okay, that's it. Our marinade is done. I'm gonna give this one a taste. It's so good. Oh, and it's spicy too. Oh, it's gonna taste so good on the tofu. Perfect. For our last tofu marinade, we've got a simple yet delicious lemon caper sauce marinade. It's so good, it's so easy. We're gonna start by mincing a shallot. I love shallots. I think they're underrated. They're like a mix between an onion and a garlic. So we don't need to use both, just a shallot, which we'll mince. And if you don't have shallots, if you can't find them at your store, you can use an onion as well, or use garlic instead. This lemon caper marinade actually comes from my cauliflower piccata recipe. That recipe has been on the blog for many years and I love it. It's one of my favorite classic recipes. But the sauce can be used on cauliflower, on tempeh, on seitan, and of course on tofu. But the great thing about marinating your tofu in the sauce is, yes, it takes on all of that flavor of the marinade, but also you can still make a piccata with the sauce, meaning you can make a nice roux using flour and use the marinade that the tofu has been sitting in to thicken it up, cook the tofu however you want, and then serve it with that creamy, rich sauce. I can show you how to do it. It's really easy. For the lemon caper marinade, we're gonna combine all of our prepped ingredients into a mixing bowl like we did with the gochujang. Just everything's gonna go into the bowl and we're gonna mix it up and then we'll add it to our tofu. We're gonna need a quarter of a cup of this lemon juice, but this lemon that I bought, these lemons had a lot of seeds. So I just gotta strain them all out before we can measure out our lemon juice. Of course, you always wanna use fresh squeezed lemon or any other citrus in recipes that call for that citrus. Even though the lemon juice at the grocery store says it's fresh and says it's fresh squeezed, it's never gonna have as good of a flavor as freshly squeezed lemons and limes do. But of course, in a bind, if you need to, yes, you can use that still. Our lemon juice, we also have olive oil, of course, capers, which I love. We have a little bit of maple syrup. And for our spices, we've got dried thyme and turmeric. The turmeric is just to give it a little bit of color. It's not really gonna give it too much flavor, but the dried thyme certainly will. And we also have black pepper and salt. Okay, we're gonna whisk it up and it'll be ready for our tofu. I love the way this one looks. It's really tasty too. Okie dokie, we have our 3 marinades, our jerk, gochujang, and garlic, and our lemon caper. And now we're gonna talk about how to actually marinate that tofu. But before, let's take a look at the pressed tofu that's been sitting back here for a while. Quite heavy. By the way, I didn't film this, but I did 2 layers of the tofu. You can immediately feel how much firmer the tofu is after you have pressed it. And as you see, it was so easy to do. And what I'm gonna do is simply transfer my tofu to my cutting board, and then we can cut it if we want smaller pieces. You can leave it as it is. It's really up to you. So let's talk about how we're gonna prepare the tofu. Depending on your marinade, you might want, larger pieces, tofu steaks. You might want tofu cubes. It's totally up to you, but I'm gonna show you what I would do for each one. And I'm also gonna show you a few ways that you can store your marinated tofu. For the garlic gochujang sauce, I'm gonna cube my tofu. That way, the marinade will have more surface area to penetrate, and cubed tofu is great in bowls, noodles, rice dishes, which is exactly what I plan to use this marinated tofu for. So let's just cube this tofu, and I'm gonna store it in the stasher bag to marinate. I'm just gonna do evenly sized cubes, and you can do them as large or as small as you would like. With cubed tofu, you really can marinate it in a number of vessels. You can use a mixing bowl, or you can use a Ziploc bag, or in my case, I'm using a reusable silicone bag. The brand is called Stasher. I love them. They sent me these recently as like a promo gift. I actually have some from them they sent in 2021 that seemed brand new. They don't hold smells. I love them. So this is not sponsored, but I do want to give a shout out to Stasher bags for really high quality silicone bags that you can use for snacks, for storing food, and also for marinating your tofu. All right, so now we're just going to put our tofu into the bag and then pour our garlic gochujang sauce right on top. Then give the tofu a nice little toss to make sure it's all nice and coated, of course. Kind of massage it gently because we don't want to make tofu scramble or anything like that. And then just close up the bag, and we can set it in the refrigerator to marinate for at least 1 hour or 2, but ideally overnight. And then you can cook it up, and you're gonna have the most delicious gochujang tofu. For the jerk tofu, I also want it to be cubed. So I'm gonna do the same thing as I just did with the garlic gochujang. I'm gonna cube my tofu, but this time I'm actually gonna marinate it in a bowl. The jerk tofu is also gonna be really tasty in bowls and rice dishes. So that's why I'm doing cubes again. The tofu is going straight into the bowl, and then just pour your jerk sauce right on top. Give your tofu a nice stir. Of course, we gotta make sure that all of it is coated. This one is nice and saucy, so you know you're gonna have some leftover sauce that can be used to cook vegetables, add it to your rice. It'll be so yummy. I'm just gonna make sure that not only is it all, tossed in the sauce, but I'm gonna try to submerge the tofu as well so that it can soak up more of that jerk flavor. For our lemon caper marinade, I'm gonna leave the tofu just as it is. I'm not gonna slice it anymore because I wanna make a nice tofu piccata out of this one. I'm gonna pour a little bit of the marinade on the bottom of this container. The reason is I wanna make sure that the bottom of the tofu is also coated. And just a note on the container, I'm using this one because it's got a flat bottom. And because I'm keeping my tofu whole, I just wanna make sure that it has a nice flat surface to marinate. So just put the tofu straight into your container, try to fit it all in. Ideally 1 layer. This is not gonna work for me because it's not wide enough, the base, but I'm gonna cover that first layer with some of the marinade, and then I'm gonna put the last piece of tofu on top. Kind of work that in and then cover the last piece as well. When my tofu is not completely submerged in a sauce, I like to, rotate it a couple times as it's marinating. So I'm doing this now, but before I go to bed tonight, I will just give it another shake. And then tomorrow, our tofu will be extra delicious and ready to cook. There are a variety of ways that you can cook the marinated tofu. I like to bake the garlic gochujang tofu. Transfer it to a baking dish and bake at 375 degrees for 30 minutes, or until it's firm and crispy on the outside. You could also air fry it for 15 minutes at 375 degrees. The jerk tofu is exceptional when it's sauteed with vegetables. I usually add onions and peppers and then saute the tofu with its sauce. This can be served over rice for a quick and tasty meal. The lemon caper tofu can be baked, air-fried, grilled, or sauteed, but I really like to take it up a notch and extend this tofu marinade to create a tofu piccata. To do this, warm 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil in a pan. Then add half a tablespoon of flour. Let it toast to create a golden roux. Add 1 cup of white wine and half a cup of water or vegetable broth and stir to thicken for about 3 minutes. Then add the tofu and its marinade and continue to cook for about 5 minutes until the tofu is heated through and the sauce has thickened. All these recipes and instructions are on the blog post for this video. The link is in the description box down below. Now you can see how easy it is to make your own delicious tofu marinades at home. And don't forget, these recipes plus 2 more are on my blog, which I will link to in the description box down below. And if you need more ideas for tofu, I also have an amazing roundup of over 31 delicious tofu recipes. And if you feel like you don't like tofu, you've never had tofu that you've liked before, it's probably not the tofu, it's probably the way it was prepared, because tofu is so versatile. There's so many different types of tofu, and it really comes down to how you cook it. So check out that roundup. I'm gonna link that down below as well. I know a lot of people do have confusion and concerns around eating soy, so I've even made a video talking about the health benefits and risks of eating soy. So you're gonna wanna check that out too if you feel like you're not sure if soy is healthy or not. And of course, I created a blog post that goes into more detail around the health benefits and risks, but really benefits of soy. So all of these things are gonna be linked down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe to Sweet Potato Soul and hit the like button. And come back next week for more delicious, vibrant, and nutritious vegan recipes.